kids. Now then, tonight, you kids that are not good writers yet, I want you to draw a picture of a shepherd and a sheep. I want it to be a good-looking shepherd and a good-looking sheep. Okay? Can you do that? You know, it occurred to me, one or two of you probably wonder, I have no wonder. One or two of you probably wonder, why does he talk to the kids so much? Well, it's been my experience that if I ask one of the children something, that suddenly everybody listens. and I know that every one of you this morning, while Max was over there looking at the post and so forth, you wanted to help him. And so it was almost like suddenly everybody's leaning in. And that is a kind of an attention getter for the rest of you. And me and Max have a good time at it too. So anyway, that helps. This lesson is about Psalms 23. A psalm you all ought to know. Thank you. You're so good to me. Michaela let me down today. Where was that left from? I'll take a chance. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The passage Matt read in Psalms 100 says, we are his people and the sheep of his pasture. What an incredibly bold statement to be made there in that passage. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Concluding with the statement, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days. What an old statement. You think of all the disasters and all the terrible things that can happen in life, and yet there it is. Obviously, this is a statement of a satisfied sheep with its owner. A sheep who has experienced and will experience no lacking in care. No deficiency. A sheep that is utterly content and doesn't want anything more. How many Christians are like that? I shall not want. So much of our lives has been spent chasing after something or another, desirous of this or that. This sheep says, I shall not want. The sheep is contented because no problem, no difficulty that might occur to it is too great for its master. No trouble. He cares for the sheep. He's fond of them. He loves them for their own sake, and personally takes pleasure in them. And he's on the job, seeing after them, not just time server. They're available 24 hours a day. You know, if you're going to be a farmer, if you're going to be a business owner, one of the things that you learn pretty quick is that you don't get to clock in and clock out. You have to put yourself into it. So the sheep knew that his master was there no matter what, and would be there no matter what. He enjoys seeing the sheep happy. Do you understand that about the Lord? He enjoys. You know, we were created for his pleasure. And it is his pleasure not to see us miserable, not to see us failing, but he enjoys seeing us content and happy, well fed spiritually. There's no greater reward, no greater satisfaction to the master than that of seeing his sheep contented, well fed, safe, flourishing. That's his life. That's what he created us for. Do you realize that about the Lord? He gives everything he has to it. He lays himself out completely because of it. He'll not sacrifice any bit of trouble to supply the sheep with the best he can find, the finest grazing, ample winter feed, clean water, shelter from storms, protection from ruthless predators, protection from the diseases and parasites that sheep are so prone to. From dawn till late at night, he's alert to the welfare of the flock. And it is with him an initial and an intimate contact. It's not remote. He doesn't follow on the internet. It's a hands-on thing. Throughout the day, he casts his eye on the flock, make sure everything's all right. And when he sleeps, you know, I know, where's David? David's a sort of a business owner. And in the winter, David doesn't get a lot of sleep because he sleeps with one eye open, one ear open to the weather. Tonight it's supposed to rain, but hopefully after we all get home, maybe ice, maybe snow. So David won't rest tonight. He'll be watching for that, knowing that he has an obligation. That's the picture that we're drawn of the shepherd who's seeing to us. He knows all about the lives of the sheep. He can tell one from another. For him, it's not just a flock of sheep. There's individuals. He knows what they are, their preferences, and what they're prone to. And so, what a bold statement that began this particular thing. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. But some Christians are not content with his care and concern. I got a lot of this material from a book that I know Ruth has because I've seen it. And I know my mother has, although she probably has forgotten about it, but maybe she'll go home and reread it. But I encourage you to get it. It's called A Shepherd Looks at the 23rd Psalm. I believe the fellow's name is Philip Keller, if I'm not mistaken, who wrote it. And it's a good book. You would enjoy it. A lot of preachers, including myself, have preached from it, and it makes a lot of good points. But one of the things that Keller says, and I'm going to read this to you, so perhaps you can tolerate it. He talks about one sheep that just wouldn't be content under control. The sheep was blessed, as all the sheep were, prospering as they all were. But in spite of having such a master and owner, the fact remains that some Christians are still not content with his control. They're sometimes dissatisfied, always feeling that somehow the grass beyond the fence must be a little greener. They are carnal Christians. One might also almost call them fence crawlers or half-Christians who want the best of both worlds. He says, I once owned a ewe. Do you know what a ewe is, Max? It's a lady sheep. It's a girl sheep. I once owned a ewe whose conduct exactly typified this sort of person. She was one of the most attractive sheep that ever belonged to me. Her body was beautifully proportioned. She had a strong constitution and an excellent coat of wool. Her head was clean, alert, well set, with bright eyes. She bore sturdy lambs that matured rapidly. In spite of all these attractive attributes, she had one fault. She was restless, discontented, a fence crawler. So much so that I came to call her Mrs. Gadabout. This one ewe produced more problems for me than almost all the rest of the flock combined. No matter what field or pasture the sheep were in, she would search all along the fences or shoreline. He says he lived by the sea, looking for a loophole she could crawl through and start to feed on the other side. It was not that she lacked pasturage. My fields were my joy and delight. No sheep in the district had better grazing. With Mrs. Gadabout, it was an ingrained habit. She was simply never contented with things as they were. Often when she had forced her way through some such spot in a fence or found a way around the end of the wire at low tide on the beaches, she would end up feeding on bare, brown, burned-up pasturage of a most inferior sort. But she never learned her lesson. She continued to fence crawl time after time. It would have been bad enough if she was the only one who did this. It was a sufficient problem to find her and bring her back, but the further point was that she taught her lambs the same tricks. They simply followed her example. And soon, were as skilled at escaping as their mother. Even worse, however, was the example she set the other sheep. In a short time, she began to lead the others through the same holes and over the same dangerous paths down to the sea. After putting up with her perverseness for a summer, I finally came to the conclusion that to save the rest of my flock from becoming unsettled, she would have to go. I could not allow one obstinate, discontented ewe to ruin the whole ranch operation. It was a difficult decision to make, for I loved her in the same way I loved the rest. Her strength and beauty and alertness were a delight to the eye. Her career of fence crawling was cut short. I don't know just exactly what happened to me, maybe dinner. It was the only solution to the dilemma. She was a sheep who, in spite of all that I'd done to give her the very best care, still wanted something else. She was not like the one who said, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." It is a solemn warning to the carnal Christian, the backslider, the half-Christian, the one who wants the best of both worlds. Sometimes in short order, they can be cut down. She was grazing far. Others followed her example. It doesn't take long for animals to figure it out. It doesn't take long for people. Eventually, she had to be cut out of the flock by whatever means, sold or eaten on Sunday dinner. There's a number of lessons in the psalm for us. We might look at several passages. The first is in Mark 6 and verse 34. The people saw them departing, and many knew him, Jesus, and ran afoot thither out of all cities, and outwent them, came together unto him. And Jesus, when he came out, saw much people, and was moved with compassion toward them, because they were as sheep not having a shepherd. He began to teach them many things. Do you ever look at our society and its vast millions and not see them the way the Lord did? Milling around, running from one thing to another, angry at one minute, elated at another, drunken, confused, sinning. Say to yourself, these are the sheep with no shepherd. And feel some sense of compassion. In John 10, of course we ought to read the whole thing. Let's read the first 16 verses. Verily I say unto you, he that entereth not, excuse me, I didn't read that. You know, the Lord every now and then really wanted to make a point. And he puts in two verities. Do you know what the word verily means? Have you ever seen it another way? Have you ever seen it another way? Truly, truly, there's another way. Amen, amen. Verily, verily. And the Lord says it twice. He says, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, that climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. He that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter openeth. I forgot who's, I think Nathaniel's serving as our porter tonight. Kevin does oftentimes, but then was feeling merciful for him and decided he needed a break. To him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice. And he calleth his own sheep by name and leadeth them out. You know, when I look at a bunch of sheep, I can't tell one from another. Can you? But the shepherd can call them by name and knows who they are. You know, you look at these millions of people here on this earth, millions. The Lord knows the name of every one. Every one. He knows, he says the hair on our head is numbered. To me, it's getting to be a smaller number. He goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. This parable spake Jesus unto them, but they understood not what things there were which he spake unto them. Then said Jesus unto them again, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. The thief cometh not, but for to steal, and to kill, and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for his sheep. Remember our passage back in Psalms 23? The Lord is my shepherd. He will give everything. I shall not want. He that is an hireling and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep, and fleeth. The wolf catcheth them, and scattereth the sheep. You know, every now and then, I've seen brethren, elders, preachers, who saw a congregation in trouble. They just didn't have the heart for the trouble. And so they ran off. Didn't run necessarily. They decided to worship elsewhere. The shepherd is going to stay with the sheep, because the time when the wolf comes is the time he's really there for. The hireling fleeth, because he's a hireling and careth not for the sheep. It's always disappointing to me to hear a preacher who abandons one group of Christians and goes to another for more money. What in the world are you thinking? I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of mine. As the Father knoweth me, even so I know I the Father, and I laid down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold, them also I must bring. They shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. You know, I didn't put this here because I was afraid it was self-serving. But I want you to look at a passage in 1 Peter, the 5th chapter. He says here, as he speaks to elders, he says to them in verse 1, the elders which are among you I exhort, whom also an elder and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, and a partaker of the glory that shall be revealed. Feed the flock of God which is among you, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre, but of a ready mind, neither as being lords over God's heritage, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd shall appear, ye shall receive a crown of glory that fadeth not away. The elders of the church are as shepherds in a very real sense, and the obligation is profound. In Philippians 4, let your moderation be known unto all men, the Lord is at hand. Be careful, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God, and the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Again in chapter 4. Not that I speak in respect of want, not that in verse 11. Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. I know both how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere, in all things, I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Look at a passage in Hebrews, 13th chapter, verse 5. He says, let your conversation, your manner of life, be without covetousness, and be content with such things as ye have. Why? For he hath said, I will never leave thee, nor forsake thee. So that we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear what man shall do unto me. The Lord is my shepherd. 1 Timothy 5, verse 9. You know, we spoke from that citation about the gadabout. There's some Christians like that. He says, let not a widow be taken into the number, verse 9, under 60 years old, having been the wife of one man, well reported of for good works, if she brought up children, lodged strangers, washed the saints' feet, as she relieved the afflicted, diligently followed every good work. But the younger widows refused. For when they have begun to wax wanton against Christ, they will marry. There's nothing wrong with them marrying, but apparently they took under a pledge that the church would provide for them. And so they would forego that pledge, having damnation because they cast off their first faith. And withal they learned to be idle, wandering about from house to house. And not only idle, but tattlers also, and busybodies, speaking things which they ought not. I will therefore that the younger women marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully, for some have turned aside unto Satan. Tend to your business, tend to your family, marry, raise children. Don't be Mrs. Gadabout, always looking for something better and greener. You might notice chapter 6. Godliness with contentment. Verse 6 begins. Godliness with contentment is great gain. We brought nothing into this world, and it's certain we'll carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. They that will be rich. You know, so many times we spend so much of our effort trying to maintain our place in society. What a terrible thing it would be to go backwards, to move from that big house to something smaller, to move from that new car to something not so nice. Worship, to ride the bus. They that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith, and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. 1 Peter 2, verse 25. Ye were as sheep going astray, but are now returned unto the shepherd and bishop of your souls. Wherefore, if I come, cite this properly. This is 3 John chapter 1, and there's only one chapter. 3 John verse 10, that's a verse. Wherefore, if I come, I will remember his deeds which he doeth, prating against us with malicious words, and not content therewith. Neither doth he himself receive the brethren, and forbiddeth them that would, and casteth them out of the church. What a trouble. How can this person say, the Lord is my shepherd? He's not content. He's a trouble. Finally, in Matthew 25, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all nations. He shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from his goats. He shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. There'll be a division. The shepherd knows his sheep. He knows them one by one. He knows which are worthwhile and which need to be cut out. I put this picture in just to remind you that sometimes the shepherd works in the winter. And the last few weeks have really reminded me of this picture on those occasions when I've had to go out into the cold Arctic blast we've been enjoying. The shepherd spends time there too. And the sheep are content because they know no matter how bad it gets, the shepherd will care for them. Can you say that? Can you quote that 23rd Psalm and be content with what it says? The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. If you're here tonight and not a Christian, it's time to humble yourself to the position of a sheep, to realize what you are, and to let the shepherd guide you. Come while we stand and sing.